Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, I'm GC Smith, and welcome to Day 5 of the official Eldritch Moon spoiler season, and boy do we have a lot of great cards to take a look at today, including a brand new Planeswalker. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's start at the base with Eternal Scourge. 3 generic mana for 3/3 Eldrazi horror creature at rare with you may cast Eternal Scourge from exile, and if it becomes the target of any spell or ability an opponent controls, you exile it. This is a really interesting card, really nice for various things, and also slots straight into the food chain deck in Legacy. The ability to just cast this repeatedly over and over and over again from exile while exiling it to food chain's ability is incredibly powerful. Such a nice ability, especially since it only costs 3 to bring back, so yeah, it's a pretty sweet card. Generic mana makes it a lot easier to cast as well, which again is great for the food chain deck. Standard wise, I'm not certain how good it will be, but we'll have to wait and see, won't we? Next up we have Stormkirk Mystic, 2 in a red for a vampire horror creature with trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library, and until end of turn you may cast that card. Pretty good ability, and it also has madness for 1 in a red. This is a really good vampire card and definitely helps fit into the deck, especially since they've kind of needed some red to balance out the black. At the moment it's been a very heavy black deck with very few little uses for red beyond cards like Olivia and the occasional bolt, so that's a pretty good ability for them to get. Next up we have Lupine Prototype, 2 mana for 5/5 wolf construct at rare with Lupine Prototype can't attack or block unless a player has no cards in hand. This is a very interesting card and I guess goes really well in the vampire deck. It's not a vampire, but they're the most likely to be out of cards, so yeah, I don't know where this will go in standard or if it will see play in standard, but it's a funny card nonetheless and I love the artwork. Next up we have Murder, 1 black for a instant with destroy target creature. Familiar card for those who played back when M13 was standard legal. I'm not too certain on how good this will impact the format. Banned has just the most power and most of its creatures are really cheap, in which case Murder doesn't really do a lot to stall it, especially since their planeswalkers have a lot of power, including the new one you're going to see in a bit, so I'm not so certain Murder is going to be that good. Next up we have Grapple with the Past, 1 in a green for a instant at common with put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then you may return a creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. Pretty sweet card with it being an instant effectively with draw a card from the top 3, arguably depending on how well you built your deck, although you can draw any other card that's been in your graveyard. I really hate this kind of card in green. Green should not have any card advantage in my opinion. They already have the best creatures as it is and so many other effects in standard, so I'm not really too happy to see this card, but I can understand why it would see print. I just don't agree with it. Next up we have Whispers of Emrakul, 1 and a black for a sorcery at uncommon with target opponent discards a card at random, and Delirium they discard 2 cards instead. Why, hello, fixed him to Turak. Not quite as good, but only requires 1 black mana instead of 2, and doesn't get there till later in the game. Still, it's a very nice card against against control strategies. Being able to discard anything at random really wrecks other strategies, especially against control where you might make them discard a counter spell or removal spell or whatever. So that's really, really good. Next up we have Emrakul's Evangel, 2 in a green for a 3/2 human horror creature at rare with tap and sacrifice Evercool's Archangel and any number of non-Eldrazi creatures. Put a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror creature token onto the battlefield for each creature sacrificed this way. At 3 mana this slots perfectly into Bank Company, especially if your opponent's about to single target remove anything. You can company into this, then actually no, you can't, it's not got haste, it can't tap, so that's quite good. But still it combos really well with Secure the Wastes, turning a bunch of 1/1s into 3/2s at the end of turns, not bad at all. Very good card and will probably see standard play in some form. Next up we have Ulvenweld Captive, 1 in a green for a 1/2 with Defender that can tap to add a green mana to your pool, and for 5 green you transform it into Ulvenweld Abomination, a 4/6 that can tap to add 2 colours to your pool. This is a pretty sweet limited card. Mana ramp's always good in limited, and the fact that you can then turn it into a bigger creature late in the game and allow it to start attacking is not bad either, and it ramps you further then at that point. Very solid limited card, though unlikely to see any constructed playability. Next up we have Collective Brutality, 1 and a black for a sorcery at rare with Escalate, discard a card. So if you want to use additional mode beyond the first, you have to discard a card for each mode you choose. You can then choose one or more. The target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose an instant or sorcery card from it, and that player discards that card. Target creature gets -2/-2 and 10 to turn, and target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. This is a pretty sweet card, especially as the game goes longer, as it allows you to do multiple things with your land that you draw that you don't need. But overall, I'm not too excited about this. Each of its effects aren't really worth 2 mana. I mean, maybe the -2/-2, but at sorcery speed, no, it's not worth 2 mana. And it's a really, worse dress, especially when you really want to hit things like enchantments and planeswalkers with this. Probably we'll see play in the vampire deck, but with a lot of creatures having 3 toughness as well, I just don't know, this seems kind of poor in the current format. Maybe when the format evolves in the future, you can see play, but right now I'm not too excited about it. Next up we have Distended Mindbender, 8 mana for a 5/5 Eldrazi insect with Emerge for 5 black. When you cast Distended Mindbender, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose from it a non-land card with convert mana cost 3 or less, and a card with convert mana cost 4 or greater, though that player discards those cards. Pretty sweet card that combines really well with a card like Thought-Knot Seer or what is it called? The 5 mana 5/5 Eldrazi, as it allows you to really ruin with your opponent for black. It's not that bad a card at all. The fact you can go Thought-Knot Seer, exile a card, and then make them discard 2 more cards in the next turn is pretty sweet. Curves perfectly in that, and I think this will slot really well into the black-white Eldrazi shell. Next up we have Peace of Mind, 1 and a white for a enchantment at uncommon with pay a white and discard a card, you gain 3 life. Not sure if this will fit anywhere really, but maybe against aggro decks if you really just need to gain life. Solid for limited in some cases, but normally life gain's not that good, so I don't know where it will be. Maybe just be draft chaff, but I can see it being usable if aggro gets really ahead of everything in constructed as a sideboard card. Next up we have Prey Upon, single green mana for a target creature you control fights target creature you don't control, add a sorcery. It's a fight mechanic, it's removal and limited, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we have penultimately Wailing Ghoul, 1 and a black for a 1/3 creature zombie, or zombie creature, with when Wailing Ghoul enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Really good and limited for the zombie deck, I imagine, and it could, I don't know if it will see constructed playability, but they have needed some 2 mana zombies, so maybe. It helps fuel your graveyard as well, which is kind of what the zombie deck wants. Not too easy to evaluate this card, as I have no experience with that deck. And finally, we have our Planeswalker, Tamiyo Field Researcher. 1 green, white, blue for a mythic rare Planeswalker Tamiyo. It comes in with 4 loyalty. And for +1, choose up to 2 target creatures until your next turn. Whenever either of those creatures deals combat damage, you draw a card. -2, tap up to 2 non-land permanents. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step. And -7, draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with you may cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana cost. This card is insane, and if it wasn't for the green mana, I would love this card. The fact this is in Bant, where Bant and green-white are already the best decks in the format, really makes me sad. Every best card in spoilers this week so far, all the best cards have been green or white, with very little going to the other colours, and most of it going to black or red. Blue has had basically nothing this week, apart from that one spell that might see play in Modern, Unsubstantiate. It's not had anything, especially after them saying they wanted blue to get something else. Yeah, I don't know. That said, this could probably fit into a Bant mid-range control deck, hopefully, because I really want to play control, and I just love this Tamiyo card. The fact that it allows me to play my Gideons as well kind of works, I guess, and it's just a great card. A lot of things to notice is that the +1 can be done on any player's creatures, not just your own, so you can use it to prevent their creatures pressuring you or Tamiyo. Going up to 5 loyalty on turn 4 is pretty powerful. It's above average in some ways, and it immediately requires your opponent to have some sort of pressure on the board. Like I said, they probably want to attack in their turn, and the fact that attacking you or Tamiyo draws you cards is never going to be a good prospect for them. And if their creatures are too big, well, you can just tap them down twice in a row if you need to. Oh, and her -7 is Omniscience combined with draw 3 cards, that's not at all unpowerful. I love this card, and I'm going to totally try and see play in a mid-range control shell, because bank control should be viable now with all the card advantage and pressure and so much other stuff it has. Answering other cards isn't going to be so easy, but there's control and there's removal in those colours, so there's counter spells, board wipes and stuff in those colours, so it should be able to do stuff as well. So yes, that's all our spoilers today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to be doing a couple of videos over the next couple of days in the weekend, and maybe a couple of deck techs and stuff for things I think could be viable in the format. Maybe not competitive, but for FNM viable. We will see. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and we'll look forward to my videos of the weekend and next week as well. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.